Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report, the Stash Project. Today is September 28th, 2020. Our last Stash Report for the month of September. But that does mean, of course, we will be back in a few days with our October compilation video. With this being the last video of the month, we have a lot of reissues from Japan. Only one kit we're going to talk about today is significantly modified in any way, shape, or form. We do have a couple of domestic releases from round 2. When we're done with this video, we pretty much have everything covered for the month except the domestic releases. There are still several round 2 kits that are pending, as well as one more kit from Hasegawa that has a new Resin Girl figure, Resin Girl, all the things. I want to start off early beginning here with a little Q&A, if you will, because Gordon Enquist had asked a couple of questions in the comments to the last video, and they were such that, just replying back to them in a text format was A, going to take forever, and B, he asked a couple of, or at least one question asking my thoughts on a subject that had come up, so I wanted to go ahead and do that, in a video format rather than just being me typing a bunch of words. He asked here, there's no Coca-Cola decals for the S10. Well, no, because that's all round 2 stuff. There's Revell has never paid a licensing fee in their life that they couldn't avoid, so no. Then is how did Japanese decide to model their car kits in 124 scale when successful Tamiya does 135th scale military subjects? Now, I'm not sure if the question there is why aren't Japanese cars 135th scale like tanks are, necessarily speaking, or it's sort of a two-parter, like why did Tamiya decide to do 135th for military scale? The whole 124th, 125th thing to me has always been sort of a kerfuffle with no need, because while I realize the overall point that some people have with it in the sense of kit swapping, it's kind of hard to swap 124 scale stuff into 125th and vice versa. Stuff does end up being noticeably too small or too big in those situations. When you get into, well, this kit and this kit side by side, they're 2 different sizes and I can't display them side by side. Then you get into that whole thing of like, what about like the Johan Cadillacs that were box scale? They were scaled to fit inside the box that they were sold in rather than being actual true anything scale. Are we really going to fight that fight? I mean, there's been plenty of times where you've had 2 kits from 2 different manufacturers, supposedly in 2 different scales, and when measured out, neither one of them is actually the right scale. So scale is a sort of a subjective thing in the first place to a lot of things, and you would think it would be a very finite thing. This is 124th. This is 125th. Well, technically 125th scale when it's done when you measure it out, because 125th was used because 2 reasons. It's very easy to convert into millimeters, and when you pantograph a 1/10th scale plan in half, it comes out in 125th scale. So that allowed them to use all the wood bucks and plans that the automotive companies were using back in the day of, all the time when they were making promo models, right? You got the blueprints from the factory, you pantograph them down a size, they came out in 125th scale, and you cut your tooling from that, and that allowed them to very quickly, obviously, make the promo models to get them out in time for the new car model years, because remember, your car model years are different than your calendar years. Car models tend to come out in the fall, the next year's models. But if you actually really measured it out correctly, it comes out to 125th.4. So it's not really 125th scale in and of itself. 124 scale is sort of known as half scale. A lot of that history goes back to the first slot car were 124 scale, going back into the World War II era. A lot of figures were 112 scale, and 124th is a half scale of that. So allowed pantographing, not pantographing, but allowed just cutting things in half. And then when you think about it, that 124th half scale continues downwards, right? You go 112th, 124th, then it goes down to 148th, which is really what military scale is in a lot of places. Then it goes down to 172nd, which is Braille scale military. And then if you cut it in half again, now you're at airplane scale at 144 scale. So, it's to say that Japanese picked 124th, it's not. It's the Americans picked 125th. Because Japanese kits are 124th scale, Korean kits are 124th scale, European kits are 124th scale, Heller, Airfix, and Revell of Germany it's just a matter of those companies that were doing promotional models, AMT, MPC, SMP back in the day, and Johan, the easiest thing for them to do was do things in 1/25 scale. And that sort of carried over. America is the oddity, not the rule. You have to look at it. It's not necessarily like, why are all these weird Japanese? No, it's not that. It's why are Americans in 1/25 scale? And while we're at, why are Americans the only company that doesn't use polycaps? I mean, I realize that Revell Germany doesn't either, but still. It's like there's this very easy, very cheap mounting system, little vinyl donuts, and it lets you mount any wheel from any manufacturer, even when you go into the male fitment, female fitment thing that Tamiya and Hasegawa use male fitment and Fujimi and Aoshima use female fitment, being there's a pin in the back of the wheel on Tamiya and Hasegawa wasn't. There's a hole in the back of the, yeah, you get the idea, right? I don't have to explain this to you. You're all grown up. Even with that, it's just a matter of, cutting that thing off and gluing the polycap to the back of the wheel on a Tommy wheel if you want to convert it to female, or adding a little piece of styrene rod into the hole, so to speak, of the female wheel, and obviously you wheel swapped your things that way. As far as why Tommy uses 1/35 scale for military, when military scale is 1/48 scale or 1/72 scale, or even nominally 1/32 scale, is because 1/35 scale, as it turned out, was the appropriate size to be small as they could get it, but also contain their motorization components to motorize tanks way back when. Remember, Tommy didn't just start in 1995. It's been going for several decades prior to that, and a lot of Tommy's early kits were motorized, even the car stuff. If you go back and buy some late 70s, early 80s Tommy's car kits, they're very poor. They're very low quality compared to what you come to expect. They're very on par with what you get out of an Aoshima or Aimei kit from back in the 80s in terms of, bad engraving, bad chassis, motorized components, shallow this, that, and the other things. Some of those kits really don't even go together all that well, which is like, oh my god, a Tamiya kit that doesn't go together well. Yeah, actually, really, those things do exist. It's Tamiya-like quality didn't exist until probably 1986 or so, when they started doing full detail kits and really started to put some effort into the static kits they did in 1/24 scale. But yeah, 1/35 scale ended up being the perfect size for them to motorize tanks. All the electric components fit inside of it, but it was still small, because 1/32 tanks are kind of big, and 1/48 scale was too small to fit everything inside of it. So they made up a scale, 1/35 scale, and it just ended up being one of those things that was popular. Tamiya sold stuff, and people were like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, look at that over there. That's kind of expensive." And then like, "Well, we should do 1/35 scale armor too." And now it's just sort of become an industry standard, although there is quite a bit of 1/48 scale armor still done to this day. And 1/48 scale is one of those universal scales, along with 1/72, where everything comes in it, right? Your planes come in 1/48, your tanks come in 1/48, you're also coming in 1/72, and tanks in 1/72. So you could 1/35 is that oddball scale where you kind of wish it had been upsized that extra couple of inches to 1/32 scale, because then at least again, your big boy planes would match your tanks. But it is what it is, and there's that. And then lastly, Gordon asked me here, have I commented on the Scale Auto Magazine demise, and what do I think of it? Try to do this without insulting anybody. I was a subscriber to Scale Auto back when it still had Enthusiast in its name. I'm old enough to remember when Car Modeler used to be published in black and white on the opposite months, because for a while Scale Auto was a 12-month a year. It was what, 12 months, 12 magazines a year, at least 9. It might have been 8 plus the contest annual. I think it was 12, and then it went down to 9 because it was 8 plus contest annual, because they started not publishing it in the summertime. Because everybody's busy in the summer and nobody bought the magazine. It turned out to be much more popular in the wintertime, when a lot of us here in the frigid tundra of above I-40 tend to spend all of our time in our shops building models. You notice that YouTube goes away kind of in the summertime. It didn't really this year because of coronavirus and the fact that none of us had anywhere to go or anything to do. But it went to, like I said, about 8 issues plus the contest issue, and then they started publishing Car Modeler, and then it became a thing where each of them published six issues a year opposite of each other. So you got Scale Auto, then you got Car Modeler, Scale Auto, Car Modeler. So there was a magazine every month. Eventually, Car Modeler faded out. Gary Schmidt sold Kalmbach, which some people still think is the worst thing that's ever happened in the country, other than maybe World War II. And it became, Scale Auto without the E. Gary Schmidt, of course, went and invested all his money. Oh, not all his money, but a good chunk of his money in opening Galaxy Limited. And, sort of is what it is history-wise there. Scale Auto has had a number of editors and a number of formats. Most of them were not particularly terribly successful. Several of them were really bad. And it's one of those sort of intrinsic ironies in the world, because what is one thing we always talk about, and I get a lot of flack for, is calling car modelers cheap, right? Oh, you can't call modelers cheap. We're just frugal. Okay, there's a difference between cheap and frugal, but we're not going to go into that. One of the biggest complaints I saw about Scale Auto was it was too expensive, right? It was $35, $39 a year for 6 issues. How dare they charge this much for a magazine? Okay, but if you don't subscribe to it because it's too expensive, you also don't get to whine about it when it goes away because you didn't pay for it to keep it in business. I understand that everyone thinks Kalmbach is the root of all the world's evils. I get that. I know that a lot of people who are sycophants down to loyalists of Model Cars Magazine, and the actual magazine, not the forum, the actual magazine, the people who actually really believe that Greg is ever going to put that magazine out ever again, will go into the fact that, they didn't like the Nazi control of the Scale Auto enthusiast forums back when they banned the Dukes of Hazzard flag off the, they weren't allowed to put General Lee's on there anymore because of the flag, and that was years and years and years ago before the shooting in South Carolina and Dukes of Hazzard going off TV and being no longer a licensable product. Scale Auto. Well, Scale Auto was a corporate magazine, and Greg was running Model Cars Magazine, and it was a fun fanzine, good time Hawaii vibe nonsense. So he allowed whatever happened there. In the end, with Scale Auto coming to a close, I see a lot of people going around saying words like, they screwed us over, they're treating us like second-class citizens, they seem to imply they have like a moral obligation to publish a magazine for car model guys. You didn't pay for it, you didn't subscribe to it, and now it went out of business. They're a business. Model Cars Magazine is incredibly poorly run, but still technically a business. It's not anyone's moral obligation to lose money. If Scale Auto, I'm not even saying they need to make money. I'm not saying that they need to turn like millions of dollars of profit in order to keep Scale Auto in business, dude. I'm saying that if they were not making enough money between subscriptions, magazine rack sales, and the advertising that went into it, they weren't in any position to forcibly lose money. You guys had the obligation to keep that magazine open. You didn't, and now you don't get to complain about it. I subscribed to Car Modeler, and for as long as that magazine ran, I subscribed to it from its second issue, because you had to find it first, till it went out. I subscribed to Scale Auto Enthusiast from the time I was like 10 or 12, which is going to go back into like 1989 or so, through I started driving a truck. So that's like a 11 or 12-year period. I picked it up sporadically in between. I subscribed to it a couple more times for a couple year chunks, coming back into the hobby. Last time I think I've subscribed to it was like 3 years ago, I want to say. You guys ran the editor out of town who wanted to do like stuff that wasn't totally focused on like old people models, in the sense of like he dared to say there should be Hyundai Velociter models, and then people ran him out of town on a rail. And, what do you want me to say? I'm sorry to see it go. I really am. I do get the idea of having a tangible physical product, right? Flip the pages, read it on the toilet kind of thing. I get that idea. I'm on that fence line between liking physical things and being okay with digital copies of things. So, yeah, the idea of having magazines, totally get that. And I don't think anybody who has that opinion of wanting to have a physical magazine is wrong in any way. That's your preference, and I'm not here to debate that or not. But at the same time, one of the great, again, hypocritical ironies of this whole thing is the fact that you have a whole bunch of people who will chase me and other people around when we comment on Revell kits, right? Oh, hey, this test shot of this Revell kit, look at this. This isn't right. These fenders are too wide. This roof is too low. This is that. And what does the Revell choir immediately do? They get all in their attack mode. They come after people, and they're like, you can't judge that based on its test shot. You don't know what it's going to look like when it's done. You have no idea. You're just some forum idiot. And then, of course, the kit comes out the exact way the test shot is because, Revell doesn't fix things once things get in a test shot format for whatever reason. Like, for the test shots we see, I'm not saying they don't ever revise test shots under cover, but the ones we see are the ones we get. And commenting on them is telling you exactly what you're going to get. This is going to be wrong, and you know it's going to be wrong, so you should be prepared for it to be wrong. It's wrong! I can't believe it! Who knew? Everybody who says you can't judge a book by a cover has now gone into this, like, torches and pitchfork thing against Kalmbach, where I'm never buying Fine Scale Modeler. They're never going to see a penny of my money. You guys have absolutely no idea what Fine Scale Modeler is going to look like with its car coverage. It could suck, it could be great, it could be anywhere in between, but you're not even giving it a chance. I'm not saying you have to subscribe to Fine Scale Modeler, but the people who say they're never going to even pick up an issue and look at it, really? Because I got to tell you right now, as we're sitting here recording this, there are people building car models for kit reviews that are going to be going into Fine Scale Modeler. Now, does that mean Fine Scale Modeler is going to be twice as thick as it used to be, and it's going to be like military in the front, cars in the back, or whatever? I don't know. I have absolutely, literally no idea. But I can tell you that, like I said, people are building cars for kit reviews for Fine Scale Modeler. They're going to make at least a passing attempt to have automotive content in it. And while we're at it, what did you expect them to do? Fold Fine Scale Modeler into Scale Auto instead? Like, if there's not enough money in Kalmbach's budget to produce 2 of these magazines, and mind you, Scale Auto wasn't the only thing that got canceled. They canceled like 5 or 6 other specialty magazines while they were at it. If they decided we're going to fold these 2 modeling magazines together, how do you put all the military stuff into the car modeling magazine? I mean, that didn't even fit. There have been car stuff in Fine Scale magazine before. Not a lot of it. It wasn't a car magazine by any stretch of the imagination, but they had done car stuff in it before. So while it may annoy the IPMS people slightly, to have dirty car modelers in there, that's okay. None of the car modelers want to be there anyway. You called them all warmongers 2 weeks ago. That makes sense to fold the cars into the Fine Scale Modeler, right? It's a description of granted, sort of a highfalutin title, but everything is a Fine Scale model, while not everything is a Scale Auto. So I don't have a problem with that folding. I really think at least give the no connection to Kalmbach whatsoever. I don't really care if they sink or swim, but I really think that giving a Fine Scale model magazine at least a peek to see if you like it or not, because if you guys, here's the other thing, if you guys refuse to support them putting cars into Fine Scale Modeler, you know what they're going to do? They're not going to put cars in Fine Scale Modeler because, well, we put it in there and then nobody cared, so why are we doing this at all? You're going to, cut your nose to spite your face. Oops. So yeah, that's my thought on it. I'm sorry to see the magazine go. I can't say I'm a 30-year subscriber, but I mean, I've been reading Scale Auto and was subscribed to it for, 30 years. And I don't think I actually have any copies of any modeling magazines anywhere. I do have some copies of, like, Motor Trend that I've saved because for reference photos, for building, like a 2010 ZR1 or a 2010 Camaro or whatever, but I've never, but even that, I've been subscribed to, well, I'm not subscribed to anything right now, but I've subscribed to Motor Trend continuously from the time I was 8 years old, which would have been 1985, until probably 3 years ago. Just continuously. Whole time. Always had that magazine, even because it wasn't related to my model car stuff. I just like cars in general. Read that magazine cover to cover. So I get the idea of having a tangible magazine. Totally get that. Not knocking that at all. But I think the intermediate reaction between the thing is crazy. Also, the idea that Kalmbach is ripping you off because you resubscribe to Scale Auto. You have 2 options there. You can either get Fine Scale Modeler, which apparently is the second worst thing that's ever happened to the world after Kalmbach, or you could get your money back. They offered you your money back. You could have got your money back. If you didn't get your money back, you were just lazy about it or wildly uninformed. One of the two. So, yeah, there you go. So let's go into this week's stuff. We had the notebook of knowledge falling to the floor, making me bend over for the November spot runs from Aoshima. This is, of course, just restock stuff. 2012 Subaru BRZ, 98 Toyota Chaser Toro 5, 99 Nissan Silvia S15 Spec R, 99 Nissan Silvia S15 Vertex, 85 Toyota Trino A6 in its TRD NER 2 body kit, and the 83 Toyota 8611 in its TRD body kit, along with Wing Set 1 and Wing Set 2, which are those little boxes of like 2 or 3 little 80s and 90s style wings. They were just put out not too terribly long ago, but they are coming back out. On the domestic side of things, kit releases out of AMT, you got this gem, the 1969 Ford Torino Cobra Fastback. So this, of course, is a tool from the 1960s. It's been reissued a plethora of times. Nothing new about this other than the fact that it has an all-new decal sheet. Beyond that, this does carry over all of the, whatever in terms of good or bad you feel about 1960s model cars. Metal rear axle. It does build in one of 3 different ways. So it's got a stock, sort of a drag, or they call it a racing, and also a custom version. So things packed with box parts, if nothing else, in terms of a bunch of stuff you're not going to use in order, when you're building this. So you have a whole bunch of stuff going in your parts box. It's not, certainly not a bad model by any stretch of the imagination. I think I built one of these when it was out last, and then, well, not last, but when I was a kid, when this was reissued in the 1990s. I don't have any terrible memories of it, for that matter. But yeah, it's again, as always with round 2 stuff, know what you're getting into when you purchase it. Let me see here. I was looking to see when this was out last, and I'm not sure I have it up here. Let's see here. 1969 Torino, rather. Looks like this was, let's see, I'm trying to think when this was released last. It was 2003 from the looks of it. I built the 1990 version of this. And it was a new tool, again, going back to 1969. So this kit has soldiered on since then. A couple of reissues. It looks like the last time was in the mid-2000s. And so it's back out and, ready for your hobby benches. It's one of those things, but if I found one of those on clearance, I might pick it up just because I kind of like that body style Torino. And it'll go with the 70 Torino stuff that I have. And then the other kit is an MPC reissue, rather. And it is the Schwinn Continental 10-speed racer. So this is 1/8 scale. It's the same scale as the Stingray Schwinn that they reissued a little while ago. It is molded in red. You get a bunch of extra parts with it, like what they call thermal can, which is that thermos that's underneath the seat there. Has like a bike pump and a bell and mirrors, and I think there's like a satchel for it as well, if I remember correctly. This kit has not been out since 1972. So this is one of those far away and nearly forgotten kits that Round 2 really does a good service for in the modeling community when they find these old kits that haven't been put out for a while. I don't know how popular bicycles are going to necessarily be with everybody, but I know that a lot of people will have built this in their younger days. And the classic crate, the Stingray, seemed to be a pretty popular reissue from what I've seen and heard. So having the 10-speed sort of road bike ought to be a good pickup for some people as well. Going overseas to Japan, we have some Aoshima stuff and some Hasegawa stuff, and one little Nunu kit, which is going to be our kit, by the way, if you haven't figured out. It's going to have some Nunu stuff to it. So Hasegawa, we got 3 reissues. First up, you have the reissue of the 92 Subaru Legacy RS. Box stock civilian, or box stock, but a just basic, I should say, civilian version of the rally car. This is available left-hand, right-hand drive, so you can build a US or at least export spec Legacy out of it. So that's always fun to have back. For a long time, you couldn't get this kit. And now it's been reissued a few times in the last 5 years, so it's not nearly as hard to come by as it used to be. For a long time, it came out in 1992. And then that was it. So it's gotten a bunch of reissues lately when they've gone back into supporting the rally stuff again. Speaking of which, reissue of the 1992 Swedish Rally Subaru Legacy RS in its rally spec. This is a reissue. This kit was reissued in 2018, so it's just a sort of a restock more than anything. And then you have this, the Lamborghini Miura P400 SV in its chassis 5030 gold restoration. So this replicates the first car that it came out of Lamborghini's. It's not even new anymore because this kit came out like 2 years ago. This one, but at the time, new Concours in-house factory restoration service. Ferrari has one. A couple other companies have, if not direct factory support, they have, very specialized shops that do factory restoration work. Lamborghini wanted to get in on that, so they created their own factory restoration specialty service, and this was the first vehicle that was restored. It is molded in gold, so know that going in. If you want to buy just a Lamborghini Miura to paint whatever color, there's the other kit that's available out there. Other than the fact that it's molded in gold, I think it has one little decal that references the factory restoration facility, but other than that, it's pretty much the same kit. It was a good excuse for them to reissue and get a little extra money out of that tooling. And then going over to Aoshima, these are all just restocks, so we're going to go through them relatively quick. First up, the reissue of the Subaru Sambar 2011 version. It's World Rally Blue Metallic limited edition. Then on the Liberty Walk side of things, you have this Liberty Walk Japan Works Skyline 4-doors. Is an 82 Skyline with a whole bunch of over fenders and bits and pieces added into it. And then over here you have the Urace Nissan Skyline R34 2001. This is the newly tooled Urace kit that just came out a few months ago. Sold out. Good job, guys. And another run needed to be done. And then you have a reissue of the Garson Girard Honda Accord wagon, obviously a little VIP vehicle there. And then you have a reissue of the 2002 Nissan R34 GTR Nismo Z-Tune. I will say that for the most part, the Tamiya one's a better kit. Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it. The Tamiya R34s are the best R34 kits they are, even if they are curbside, because the Fujimi one's a snap-tight kit, and these Aoshima ones have everything molded into the chassis. There is going to be either you're painting the whole thing, flat black and just forgetting about it, or you're going to spend all weekend picking details out of the molded-in chassis. Kind of a shame, but it is what it is. And then we have 3 sets of wheels. These are all reissues, not new or anything. 19-inch wheels from Enkei, the Racing Revolution GT CO1RRs. The Advan RG3, and the Advan Racing RSDF. So that takes care of Aoshima for the month of September. They're done. There's nothing else coming out of them. And so last but not least for this week, you have from NuNu the newly modified Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Rally from the 1982 Rally of 1,000 Lakes. So I think NuNu found out that Hasegawa was going to be doing this exact same model kit, and so they pushed this release up. This was not supposed to come out until the end of next month, and they went, sales. And so they shoved it out the door as fast as possible. It literally was released in Hong Kong like 2 days after they announced that they were going to be doing the Hasegawa kit. So this has around about 18 or 20 new parts included in it, new bumper, over fenders. I think there's a new rear bumper as well. I think the hood is also new. The wheels are new, and this, because the original Lancer Rally that B-Max did, which of course B-Max NuNu, same thing, was a 1800 non-turbo. So there's been, again, some pieces and parts added to it to convert it over to the new kit. This finished third in the 1,000 Lakes. The 1,000 Lakes Rally of 1982 finished third. It's one of the best World Rally finishes that this car had. Now, the Rack Rally one earlier did finish first in its class, but this finished third overall, which was, 2 different things. That first in class was like 5th or 7th overall in the black Advan car. And then that, like all NuNu B-Max kits, that has its own PE set. I don't believe there's anything different about this PE set than the other PE set for the non-turbo Lancer, but standard thing here. PE, seatbelt material, air jack, antenna base and antenna, and instructions. There's no decals in this, so apparently the all the decals for the belts are actually on the decal sheet rather than being separate. We didn't have to use some non-authorized Say-Belt decals for this one. As I said, I think this decal sheet is identical. I don't think there's anything different about it. But it's just convenient to buy it when it's out rather than trying to go backwards into history and try to dig an old BMAX PE setup. And that, guys, is that. So, yeah. Our kids this morning, because I am actually really recording this on Monday. When it gets out, nobody knows, but I'm recording this on Monday. All of my kids, every single one of them, because my oldest, who's in college, is actually at her one day she's on campus. Everyone is gone. The house, you hear that, guys? You hear that? Exactly. Nothing. It's just me, 2 cats, and a dog. Finally. Now, I realize that by no stretch of the imagination, as people are dying in like reams and infections are going up in 22 states across the country, and we have politics coming and all that stuff, that by no means is there any sort of sense of normality anywhere. But just for a couple hours this morning, everything's back to normal. Until I gotta go to work and put a mask on and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, we hope you guys had a great weekend, and we'll see you guys on this episode.